Set.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elle Gelernter. To begin, I'd like to ask you to imagine something. I'd like to ask you to imagine that you're sitting in a giant metal container that looks something like this. And you're flying about 4,000 feet above the ground, when all of a sudden you get the feeling that you feel when going down a steep hill on a roller coaster. Your stomach drops and you feel weightless. Except there's no rail beneath you. You're falling out of the sky. I was pretty terrified when this first happened to me. However, interestingly enough, I made the plane do this on purpose. Moments later, I was flying again in control of the plane, and my instructor, sitting next to me, told me to do another one. I just performed a stall, one of the many flight maneuvers that I would have to perform over the course of my training as a student pilot. Let me give you some background on my time as a student pilot. I did not begin my flight training at the beginning of senior seminar. In fact, I have been a student pilot since I was 10 years old, when I took my first discovery flight at Concord Municipal Airport. And over the course of 7 years, I've logged a total of 67.4 total flight hours, including 12.4 hours where I was the only occupant of the plane, and a total of 200 takeoffs and landings. I've also gone to over 13 airports over the course of my training. As you can see in the routes above that I've traveled, some of those routes I've traveled many times. For 7 years, I trained on and off, attending lessons occasionally, sometimes not more than once a year. When it came time to decide on a project for senior seminar, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to finally finish my pilot's license. And so I did. For my project, my goal was to work towards completing the training requirements to earn my private pilot's license. These training requirements are divided up into two main sections: my ground instruction and flight instruction. Let me begin with ground instruction. There's a lot of studying that must occur on the ground before any student pilot can earn their license. Additionally, there's a lot of work that every pilot must do before going on any flight. My ground training consisted of both an online ground course and training with my flight instructor. My online ground course consisted of about 15 hours of educational videos, as well as preparation for my written test in the form of practice tests and digital flashcards. In addition to this, I trained with my flight instructor on the ground, learning how to do things such as file a proper flight plan, how to get a good weather briefing, and how to pre-flight check a plane before every flight. And then there's the fun part, the flying. My flight instruction can be divided into four main categories: dual flight, solo flight, cross-country, and maneuvers, although the top two and the bottom two can overlap. Dual flight simply means flight with my instructor, and solo flight means flight where I'm the only occupant of the plane. Now, cross-country flights and maneuvers training are two fundamentally different parts of flight training that are both critically important in a pilot's mental toolkit. Cross-country flight is not a flight that means literally going across the country, although it's possible. It simply means traveling from one airport to another. This uses mainly a pilot's communication and navigation skills, as their plane is mostly in level flight and they do not have to do much with it other than talking on the radios with air traffic controllers and other pilots. And then there's maneuvers training, another critically important part of flight training that uses a different set of skills. Maneuvers training is usually for the purpose of preparing student pilots to know how to respond in the case of an unexpected event or an emergency. This would include a stall, as I described for you earlier as I was falling out of the sky. In order for pilots to perform these maneuvers, they must have a detailed understanding of the scientific principles of flight. And that goes into my research component. When I was thinking about a topic that I could research for my project, I went back to one of the reasons why I originally decided to start flying. For a long time, I've wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. This has been my career goal for most of my life, and it was one of the reasons I started flying. So I thought, as an engineer, it would be really interesting to research the scientific principles of flight for my project. However, since my project was about getting my pilot's license, I thought it would be even more interesting to look at it from the point of view of a pilot rather than an engineer. Let me begin by explaining the four main principles of flight. These are the four forces that act on an airplane. There's thrust, lift, drag, and weight. Thrust is the force provided by the engine that propels an airplane forward. Drag is a force that acts opposite direction of motion and is caused by air friction. Weight is the gravitational force on an airplane. And lift is the force that acts upward on the wings, counteracting the weight and allowing the airplane to fly. Now, why do pilots need to have a detailed understanding of these principles of flight? Why is this not left to just the engineers and the scientists? Well, intuition. This is the answer. What does this mean? Let me try to explain. As you might imagine, swimming is very different from flying. Let me explain this further. Both in swimming and flight, there are a number of forces acting on a body or an aircraft. However, in swimming, one does not need to understand buoyancy in order to float. Nor do they need to understand Newton's third law to understand that pushing water backward will make them go forward. It is a fairly intuitive activity. The same goes for driving. You push the gas pedal to go forward, the brake to slow down, turn left to go left, turn right to go right. Now, flight is very different. There are many instances where a pilot may have to take action that is, in fact, counterintuitive in order to properly deal with the situation. For time's sake, I will explain just one of these for you, and that is stall. Remember when I was falling out of the sky earlier? Let me explain how this happened and how I recovered. A stall occurs when the angle of attack of an airplane's wing gets too high. This is the angle of a wing relative to the wind flow over it. When this angle gets too high, the wind flow over the top of the wing gets disrupted, and this causes it to stop producing lift, and it will begin to fall out of the sky. Now, one's intuition might tell them that if they are falling towards the earth, they might want to pull up. However, they would be incorrect, and this could lead to catastrophe. A pilot, to properly respond to a stall, must immediately point the nose of an aircraft down, straight towards the earth they are falling towards. Now, a pilot might not do this based on their intuition, but since they understand the principles of flight, in this case lift, they know that in order for lift to be produced, there must be a low angle of attack so that there's smooth airflow over the top of the wing, and this will restore lift to the wing and allow the plane to fly again. What has flight given me? Well, first, as a pilot, it has taught me to always trust my instruments rather than my instincts, as they are always more reliable. In addition to this, it has been a great confidence booster, knowing that I can fly an airplane, and it has allowed me to be more confident in my abilities in other areas of life. It has also improved my critical thinking and problem-solving skills, as flying an airplane is full of unique tasks, and no flight is the same as the last. Pilots must be able to think critically and respond to unique situations in order to fly an aircraft safely. This, being part of my flight training, has improved my skills of critical thinking and problem solving in all other areas of my life. Thank you. Yes?
Is there certain type of planes that you anticipate flying besides this? Do you want to get bigger aircraft? Or?
So right now, I've only flown Cessna 172 and 152s, which is a standard training aircraft. I do not plan on being a pilot for a career. I'd rather be an aeronautical engineer. Although if I do have time to pursue further ratings, such as my instrument rating or commercial rating, it's likely that I can fly more high-powered or complex aircraft. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mason.